Hello, I'm Bill Labaris. I'm the Content Director for the Mobile Enterprise 360 community. And I'm pleased here to be joined today by Kurt Raymer, who is Chief Security Strategist at Citrix. Kurt, thank you very much for being my guest here today for this short video.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here.
Now, when it comes to managing the BYOD environment, and I'm careful to say managing and not controlling, what's a reasonable set of gives and takes that IT should or may ask of end users in this regard?
Yeah, it's interesting when you take a look at BYOD versus IT control, and I will use the word, they're really at odds with each other. BYOD is a deeply personal experience. You're bringing in your own device. You don't want to have somebody make a whole bunch of changes to it so that you can use it at work. And meanwhile, IT has to protect the interests of the organization for governance, compliance, risk management means, and a whole bunch of other things. Really, it's what are the minimal controls that can be put in place to provide the maximum benefit and really appropriately manage risk. So, for example, when somebody brings in a BYOD device, should IT be able to take that device, install MDM on it, force passcodes, and do all kinds of other things that may be counter to personal ownership? And should IT be able to back up the device and look through the device for logs and for content? And really the answer is no. If an IT organization feels that they need to have a lot more control over the device and they need to manage it the way that they've managed traditional assets, then that's not a good candidate for BYOD. That particular user or that particular group should not be BYOD. BYOD is really, how do I take a personal device and be able to utilize it at work, but utilize it in a risk-appropriate fashion? One other aspect of this is we have to remember that BYOD is not all or nothing. I walk around with 3 different devices during the day, and a couple of those devices are mine. One is the enterprise's, and I can also go up to any enterprise device and log in and do what I need to do there if I'm getting to some of the most sensitive info in the company, which is probably not appropriate for me to use and definitely not appropriate for me to carry around on my BYOD device.
I find that an interesting, answer coming from a chief security strategist. So it's almost more of a laissez-faire attitude, keep your hands off, more than putting a heavy footprint on a device which is brought in by an employee who owns the device. I mean, am I framing that accurately?
You are framing it accurately, but it's definitely not a laissez-faire attitude. It's using it appropriately, and the real rub in all of this is making sure that IT can present the users with the appropriate amount of material and the appropriate risk so they can carry around public data, they can connect up to mildly confidential data, but they can't work with some of the most restrictive data in the company on a personal device. It's got to be natural for the user. So as they pick up a consumer-grade device like an iPad, they know that they can do certain things on there. And if they need to get into the company financial system and work on unreleased financial results, for example, they pretty much know they shouldn't be doing that from their iPad. They should be doing that from a corporate managed system where there's more logging and control and all the other things that have to be in place to satisfy SEC objectives. So it's not about a one-size-fits-all environment. It's really about tailoring the environment to risk, but allowing BYOD and all the productivity and other gains that it provides.
Well, it's a good segue into the next question I have, because according to one survey that I saw, most companies still are pretty reluctant and cautious about letting the BYOD crowd access and share really sensitive enterprise data, like Salesforce.com and a lot of other things. Do you see any changes to that, substantial changes in the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, the changes are really people taking a different look at how we access data. I mean, previously, you got a set of credentials that allowed you to log in from any device that the organization owned, and you got access to all of that data from all of those devices. You could copy data down locally. You could basically do whatever you wanted to within your realm of access. That was not always appropriate, and it makes a lot more sense for people to be able to do things that are more risk appropriate to their device, to their location, to the particular work that they're doing on a project, for example. And so being able to go through and say, based on the device you're coming in, based on the location you're coming in from, I'm going to let you interoperate with the company's CRM system and Salesforce. I'm going to let you update things. I'm going to let you, go through and generate reports, but I'm not going to let you save those locally, or I'm not going to let you print those locally. That print and that output really needs to be done in a company office. Mm-hmm. And the controls have evolved so that we can actually do that. And before, IT had to take control over the entire environment because there was very little that they could control once somebody was given access. Now with virtualization and a lot more of a remote access mentality, people can take and granularly carve off various pieces of the applications and be able to control what people can do depending on how they're trying to access it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Last question I have for you, Kurt. There's been a couple of pretty high-profile pronouncements by some big companies, notably Yahoo and Best Buy, putting the kibosh on telecommuting and the BYOD movement to some extent. Are these exceptions to certainly what we here at IDG see as a generally perceived broader trend to supporting a distributed workforce?
Yeah, I do see people pulling back on telecommuting as being an exception, and maybe there are some management or company reasons for that. Every company should be able to restrict the use of telecommuting and BYOD to only those people that it applies to. It shouldn't, in most companies, be an across-the-board 100% thing, and it's definitely not here at Citrix. It's BYOD programs are subject to manager approval. However, telecommuting and being able to work from home, being able to work from anywhere is a great freedom for employees to have. We ask a lot of our employees today across organizations, and we should allow them to have the freedom to be able to work when they're going to be most productive, but also be able to balance their work life with their personal life. Having access to BYOD, having access to all these great remote technologies for remote meetings and access and other things like that really help to transform work, but it's different from the you will come in at 9, you will leave at 5:30 every day mentality that some organizations have been used to. We do, as we're out talking to many different companies throughout the world, find that BYO and the freedom to work from anywhere has increased employee satisfaction and increased productivity. It's really been a win-win across the board.
Right, right. Now, I worked with Citrix for a number of years, and I've always found it to be a company that definitely, I don't like the term, but eats its own dog food. I mean, basically practices what it preaches, and I think in the end, your customers and your company's been a lot better off for it as well. Well, Kurt Reamer,
we benefit from it.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Kurt Reamer, Chief Security Strategist at Citrix, thank you very much for being my guest here today.
Thank you, Bill.
And I'm Bill Laveris with IDG saying thank you very much for joining me here today as well.